Everyone, hello, hello. Good to see you all. We're going to finally start. Technology being what it is, you know. Welcome to Green Drinks for June. We are so delighted to see you and have you here with us. I believe the microphone is working. There we go. I hear it a little bit more now. Yeah, and hopefully everybody's able to find a seat while he's in here. I want you to meet Andrew, who is our server tonight from Dukes, and Dukes is our host. Make sure you connect with him if you need to. Sorry, but sometimes he's not in here for me to introduce. And my name is Leslie, if we haven't met, and we have a great committee, all volunteer committee. We have Ann, we have Aaron, Grace. Nope, not over there. Pat is somewhere. Technicoff was standing up in the back, and Lynn and Carl in the back. There she is.
And Jonathan.
And Jonathan went over there. He's helping us with our sound system. So we have a tech team, which is great, and we are always grateful for them and to you for coming. So Dukes is a co-sponsor of Green Drinks and Defenders of McHenry County as well. And we greatly appreciate their support for over 16 and a half years. And delighted again that you all could come this evening. We are part of a worldwide thing. If you haven't been to Green Drinks before, raise your hand. Be brave. It's okay. That's what I thought. So we want you to know quickly a little bit about Green Drinks. It started a long time ago over in England and has become an international thing. They've changed their website a bit. We used to look at who was new every time, but this time, because I figured there'd be lots of new people, I want you to know who you're connecting with around the world. So these are the countries or continents that are having Green Drinks currently. Argentina, Australia, Canada, Chile, Denmark, Germany, Hong Kong, India, let's see, Ireland, Japan, Mexico, New Mexico, New Zealand, sorry, I said New Mexico, right? Yeah. Taiwan, they're state. That's my handwriting at fault. We are informal, are we not? Taiwan, the United Kingdom, the US, and Vietnam. So we are connected all over. And our goals for our Green Drinks really are to help build our environmental community and to educate that community. So there's our education piece tonight, waiting in his turn, and then to connect you back to the community at the end with appropriate announcements that apply to our community and environmentally, in other words. So at the end, we'll give you time if you need it for a whole minute. We actually time people, look out. And if you stand up and tell us who you are and who you're associated with, if that's the case, and share the important information, while we're happy to get you connected with other folks that are new as well. Next month, we have another good program, which is, Ann is put together.
Yes, and it is going to be a fun program. Join Molly Dunn, and she's an ex-sustainable fashion industry and founder of Fulfilled, which is a curated vintage store on Woodstock Square for an engaging talk on fashion waste. And she's going to take us from fashion's global impact to what we can do about it as individuals. Prepare to leave feeling inspired. And we would like to encourage everyone here to wear something vintage, something from a garage sale or resale or thrifted or up. We know. I know it's not easy for guys to do. Yeah. And we may ask you if you want to tell us a little bit about it at the end of the program next. There you go.
So make sure you get back in July, on July 1st.
Oh yeah, July 1st, sorry.
There you go. That's okay. That's why I'm here too. But wanted to let you know we have a new used projector, and we are grateful to the Citizens Climate Lobby for donating that to our Green Drinks. So we appreciate that. We're still, if you're interested, taking some donations for our sound system and whatnot. And so there's a jar on the back table for that if you are so inclined. I think that's it for the moment. So I want to introduce our speaker, and Nancy Sheets helped organize tonight. But Scott should be known to you for some of us. Scott Kuykendall, who is our water resource specialist. He's spoken here previously, and you might see him in the community, lots of different places. He's a graduate of SIU originally, so some of you are from there, right? But he's taken great interest in this important subject. He's been working on it and studying up on it for a year. So we couldn't think of anybody better to have come talk with us. So Scott, thank you for coming again to Green Drinks. Give him a good welcome.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. So my name is Scott Kuykendall. I'm the Water Resource Specialist for the McHenry County Department of Planning and Development. I help oversee the county's scientific research into water resources. I help develop public policy to protect water resources. I help maintain the county's environmental compliance, and then I do a lot of public education and outreach. And I will caveat this by saying I am not an expert on data centers. What I do is, I don't take a position in my role with the county. I don't take a position on any particular topic. But what I am responsible for is looking at how these systems work, how the different types of projects work, what are the inputs, what are the operations, and what are the outputs. And then what are the risks at each one of those phases? And then what are how can you mitigate those risks? And so as the data center boom started really evolving, I was trying to get a better understanding of this. And I'm finding this particular project is being said it's going to be using 5 million gallons a day, or it's going to be using less than a car wash. Which one is true? It really was very difficult to find out. And so I really have invested a lot of my time over the past year, really digging deep into it. And I'll go to the actual manufacturer's websites. I'll read the sustainability reports of the different companies. So I'm really trying to get to what the most consistent information I can find is. And so that's what I'm sharing with you tonight is kind of my adventure over the past year. This is all my personal opinions and findings. It's not county policy, but I really tried to be diligent, even-handed, and focusing on what the consistent information is. And hopefully this will empower you to be asking the right questions as this moves forward. So first thing I always talk about is water is necessary for every living thing on the planet. When we're looking for life in the universe, the number one thing we're looking for is evidence of water. Water is vital to life. Because it's vital to life, it is also our number one economic driver. People are not going to invest in homes and businesses if they don't have access to safe, clean, reliable, and affordable water. So our water is our number one economic driver. And although it's so important, when we make land use decisions that can impact water, rarely are we taking water into consideration. So that's a big part of what I try and do is educate on how water fits into our land use. So this is a map showing the distribution of water sources for public water suppliers in the state. Up in the top right is, of course, Lake Michigan in the dark blue. But most of northern Illinois gets their water from groundwater. And so those are the areas shown in brown. Part of central Illinois gets their water from groundwater too. So groundwater is the main thing that I focus on in my work. Downstate, they don't have access to the groundwater or lake. And so they focus more on reservoirs. So all the light blue that you see downstate are reservoirs where they have dammed up a stream or river. That requires a lot of land area. It can be very expensive to develop these, all kinds of water quality issues, and then you're losing a large percentage of that to evaporation. And the only source of water is rainfall in those cases. So it's really important to understand where your water comes from and the opportunity and constraints of these different resources. This is a great map that was put together by the Illinois State Water Survey. It shows a cross-sectional view of the geology in northeastern Illinois. And so it shows the water sources that we utilize in northeastern Illinois. So of course you have Lake Michigan in the top right. Now the water we get from Lake Michigan is allowed under a Supreme Court decree. So we have a fixed amount of water that we are allowed to take out of Lake Michigan in Illinois. And it's about 2 billion gallons a day. So it's a lot of water, but half of that is actually the storm water that we're diverting away from Lake Michigan. So only about half of that allocation is drinking water. And that drinking water source is expanded far outside the watershed. The watershed is actually just a very narrow band right along the lakeshore. And if we start exceeding the amount that we're allocated, then water supplies will start being pulled back. So Lake Michigan is not an infinite source of water. It really is important to understand that. The dark brown in the top left is our main water source. So we have a lot of sand and gravel in our region that was deposited in our area, mostly from the last ice age. As the glaciers came and went, they scoured the landscape, pulverized the soil, and as they melted, they deposited a lot of sand and gravel in our area. And that is our main aquifer. When it rains or snow melts, water is able to percolate down through the pore spaces in the sand and gravel particles, create a water table, and then we can drill down into that water table and pull our water out. Below the sand and gravel is a layer of limestone, so that's an older geological feature. The limestone or dolomite is hard, rigid rock, so it's not porous like sand and gravel, but it can have lots of cracks and fissures. And so water will percolate down through the sand and gravel, and where the cracks and fissures are aligned just right to transmit a lot of water, they can hold and serve as an aquifer. So in those two aquifers, we have about 30 to 40,000 private wells drawing their water from those aquifers. And most of our cities get all or part of their water from the sand and gravel aquifer. So it's a very vital source. The great thing about it is it's recharged locally. Every time it rains or snow melts, as long as we don't pave over everything or contaminate that aquifer, that is a perfectly renewable system. We also have 3 deep bedrock aquifers. These are sandstone aquifers, and it's just like it sounds, sand that has been compressed into stone. So these are very old geologic features. The uppermost one is the St. Peter that's largely been desaturated, and it's a soft, friable rock, so it breaks apart easily. So that is really not used for drinking water in our area. The lower one is called the Mount Simon, and that's a brackish water. It's largely saline, so that is not used for drinking water either. Where you'll hear about this Mount Simon the most is right now carbon sequestration is being proposed downstate, and it's the Mount Simon that's being targeted for that carbon sequestration. So you can kind of have a visual understanding of what they're talking about now. So it's this middle aquifer that we tap into the most for our municipalities. The pore spaces in the sandstone are very, very tiny, but it encompasses such a large area, it can hold a lot of water. But that water is actually coming from far away. And I've got a map that'll help show that. But this is where our drinking water comes from in northeastern Illinois. So these are maps showing the distribution of the different groundwater types throughout the state. And once again, you can see up in northern Illinois, we have a lot more access to aquifers than the rest of the state has. I do highlight this area down in central Illinois. So this is an area called the Mahomet Aquifer that extends from Champaign down to Bloomington and out to Peoria. This is a vital aquifer for that region. It is the sole source of water for like Champaign. They have no other source. If that were to become contaminated or pumped out, they have no other source. That is their sole source of water. So it really drives home the point that we really need to understand the opportunities and constraints of our different water resources. So in the 2000s, McHenry County was experiencing exponential growth. And our county board members wisely asked, do we have enough water to support this growth? And so we have done more to understand our water in McHenry County than any other county in the state. I work with a lot of state agencies and federal agencies, and they love McHenry County because of the efforts that we've gone through to understand our water resources. One of the great resources we have is we have a network of monitoring wells. I have 37 monitoring wells throughout the county, and these are monitoring the water levels in real time. So every 15 minutes, it's taking water level measurement, transmitting the data up to the U.S. Geological Survey satellites, and then the U.S. Geological Survey maintains the wells and the data for us. And work with their scientists to come up with a very easy to use interactive website that's available and open to the public. You can just go to McHenryH2O.com to access it. But we've been collecting data since 2009. So every 15 minutes, we've been collecting data since 2009. So we now are getting a much better understanding of how climatic changes and weather patterns affect the different aquifers in the county. And just show how a single land use can have an impact on our sand and gravel aquifers. This is one well out by Wonder Lake where a large subdivision is going in. You can see in 2012, we had a catastrophic drought throughout the area, water level dropped. One of the things I'd like to point out here is that there's a natural rise and fall in water levels over time. Water is not only moving downward, it's moving outward and recharging our lakes, rivers, and streams. So water will draw down, but our aquifers are resilient enough. As long as we're not pumping it out faster than it's naturally being recharged, the water levels can recover. But in 2020, kind of a double whammy hit. One, we started a drought, but development started in this large subdivision. And ever since then, it's been a steady decline year after year. It's kind of interesting. The signature that we're seeing is probably indicative of irrigation. So in the spring, the pumps turn on to start irrigating. In the fall, they turn off, so you have recovery. The pumps turn on and then turn off in the fall, you have recovery. But year after year, the water levels are drawing down. And so, a single land use can have a profound impact on our sand and gravel aquifers. These are renewable resources, but they have limitations. So once again, we talked about the sand and gravel, then the Ironton Galesville. Like I said, that's recharged from far away. The water we get from that aquifer is largely coming from Wisconsin, where that rock layer rises up towards the surface. So when it rains or snow melts in Wisconsin, the water is able to get down in that aquifer and slowly make its way towards us. But it takes about 1,000 or more years for water to land up there, get into the aquifer, and slowly make its way towards us. So we are pumping this aquifer out at about twice its recharge rate. So it is a non-renewable aquifer. And you guys have probably heard some of this, but in the Joliet region, it's not solely Joliet, they get beat up a lot, but it's all the communities in the Joliet area have drawn the water table down in the deep sandstone aquifer by about 1,000 feet. That 1,000-foot drawdown extends outward. It's called a cone of depression, and it extends outward. And underneath McHenry County, they have dropped our water table in the southeast corner of the county by about 400 feet. And then when we turn our high capacity wells on, that drops the water table down another 400 feet. So now we're at or near the surface of the bedrock. And that's when problems can start. But you can see it's not evenly distributed. So as you get further up towards the recharge area, they're somewhat insulated. So once again, you need to understand the opportunities and constraints. But even in the Rockford area, we're seeing a new drawdown occurring. So this is a non-renewable resource that we're pumping faster and faster. So there are no such things as infinite water resources in our area. We are very water rich relative to the rest of the state and much of the rest of the country, but we do need to operate within a balanced budget. So when we talk about data centers, I think everybody has a fairly good idea of what data centers are, but they're facilities that hold the computers that run the cloud, streaming, and what's really driving our discussion is the explosive growth of AI. The amount of energy and water that they potentially use is significant. And these are unique resource demands. So, it's not just like every other industry. So data centers are different from other industries because they do operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There is no downtime. And the amount of energy that they are consuming is growing year after year as the chips get more and more powerful. So we really haven't even seen the full extent of data center energy and water consumption yet because they really aren't even operating at full capacity yet. And then data centers have gone from being a large facility, being about 3 acres, to now their facilities are being proposed over 1,000 acres in size. And that's, hyperscale data centers. And so the scale of the makes it very easy. So data centers need access to 3 main things: fiber optic networks, energy, and a lot of energy, and water. So when we talk about water use, there are different types of water uses, and this is where things start to get a little confusing. So you have direct water use and indirect water use, and often these are just lumped together or misrepresented. So when we talk about direct water use, this is primarily for cooling, but it's in the building. The computer systems produce a massive amount of heat, and they would literally melt down if you didn't have proper cooling. They will also have water for general water use and fire suppression, but orders of magnitude, the main water use is for cooling. So that is direct water use. Then you also have indirect water use, and this is primarily from energy production. So about 80% of water use in a data center is for energy production. So this is usually off-site. So it is not drawing water from the same source as the direct use. And so this is where things really do start to get confusing. But when we talk about energy production, whether it's coal, natural gas, or nuclear, these are just different ways of boiling water. And so they will use an enormous amount of water in the energy production process, and then they also have to cool the equipment down. So water will be used for cooling the equipment too. And a lot of times these indirect water use calculations are incorporating the full life cycle of all the materials going into the facility. So it's not only accounting for the water use during the energy production, the steam production and cooling, but also the extraction of the fuels that are being used, the water that was extracted and utilized for producing the equipment. So the indirect water use really can be a very encompassing calculation. And it really is important to understand what is the full extent of this. It's very easy for people to discard the indirect water use because it's over there. And that's not right either. But we do need to be able to distinguish between the direct water use and indirect water use. One more slide on that. But we need to be able to break these things out. So if we want to know what are the impacts to our aquifer, if we are calculating all the indirect water use and lumping that together with all the direct water use and using that as our number, that is not a realistic number of what's actually going to be happening to our aquifer. So I think both of these numbers are important, but we do need to be able to break out and distinguish the numbers that are being used. These are very difficult to track. So one of the problems is there's been a complete lack of transparency on the data industry side. And I think they've completely shot themselves in the foot. I have spoken to a lot of folks in the data center industry, and they feel the same way. The most enthusiastic thing I found over the past year is a YouTube video of a tour of a data center. And it was just two tech nerds geeking out about the technology. And just watching these guys and their enthusiasm really was enjoyable. I think if they had these guys as their spokespeople and they were transparent with all this information, I think they would actually have a lot more support than they do. This is my biggest concern. It's new and rapidly changing technology. This is not a field that's well figured out. They are in a race to be first and figuring this out as they go. And that makes it a fairly dangerous technology, in all honesty. When I first started my career, many years ago, we were chasing this technology called cellular communications. And so I was working for an engineering firm, and we were chasing all the high spots along all the major interstates from northern Minnesota all the way down to southern Indiana. And everybody had to be first, and nobody would share the towers. Everybody had to have their own towers. So I'd be on a site with 12 towers on it. It was chaos. But I see a lot of analog to that time and what we're seeing now. But the footprint of a cell tower is nothing compared to the footprint of a hyperscale data center. So this is a very different scale that we're talking about. But I do see a lot of similarities in the pace and sense of urgency that these companies are moving forward with. And the biggest problem is that there are no federal or state guardrails on these technologies. So it really is up to local governments, whether it's county or municipality. It is up to those local governments to be the guardrails. And if they don't understand how these systems work, then they won't be asking the right questions. And people are going to city council meetings and calling for the wrong information. The right information is not going to be figured out either. So it's really important and incumbent upon us to understand how these systems really work. And so that's what I'm going to try and share with you tonight. So once again, it's difficult to track. There are no standardized reporting methods for water use. So some figures will only talk about a very small percentage of the water use in a data center, and others will combine everything that's ever been touched going into that data center. And you have no way to compare these things, and there's no transparency on any of the calculations. You know, I would love to have some type of standardized reporting methodology so that you can compare one project to another much more easily. Here's the slide I was looking for. So once again, we need to be able to break out the direct water use from the total numbers that are being talked about. so that we can understand what the true impact of a data center might be on our local resources. This does get a bit grayer, and I'll talk more about it, but as demand for on-site energy production increases, then the demands on water for both direct and indirect will be coming from the same source. I will talk more about that. So when we talk about data centers, this is a very basic illustration that Sue Jensen and her husband helped put together for me. And it shows just the basic mechanics of a data center and their cooling systems. So you'll have your equipment. You can air cool it, or you can do what's called direct closed loop systems, and that's what you're seeing more and more. And that's where they will bring cooling, typically a liquid, directly onto the chips themselves. And this is much more efficient than trying to heat up the whole room to get that chip cool. And so the liquid, whether it's water or some other type of liquid, will be in a closed loop system. And so you are not just using water infinitely. If they're using air cooled systems, it really, a lot of engineering goes into this. They'll actually have design it so they have cold aisles and hot aisles so that they can really efficiently provide cooling. They'll have false floors to help move the air properly. So a lot of work really does go into providing the cooling for these systems. But they can have the greatest system in the world here, but that heat just doesn't disappear. They're pulling the heat off the servers. That heat has to go somewhere. So it goes in a heat exchanger. And then where it goes from there determines how much water they're actually using, even if they have a closed loop system. So if they're using adaptive cooling, which is the main way they use to cool these data centers, and it is basically shooting water onto the air, and the cooling occurs from the evaporation of that moisture. And so if they're using adaptive cooling, even if they have a closed loop system, they could still be using an awful lot of water. Now, if they're doing a closed loop system and mechanical cooling where it's refrigerant based, they may be using very little or no water at all. So when we are looking at data centers, individual data centers, we really need to be looking at this from a systems perspective. So what is the cooling system for the equipment, and what is the cooling system for the building, and how do these work in combination with each other? And I'll talk about some of the different technologies. And I saw you had your hand up. If we can keep questions to the end, otherwise we'll be here for 12 hours. So one of the things that data centers are trying to do, they want to use as little energy as possible because that's where the real cost of operations are. And so they want to have any energy that they are using going directly to the IT. If they are putting, actually one other thing I want to point out here, there is a direct correlation between the efficiency of the cooling system. So the more water efficient the system is, the more energy intensive it is. The less energy or less water efficient it is, the lower the energy use. There's a direct correlation there. And so there is an incentive for them to use the most water consumptive technologies possible because it will lower their costs for energy. It's a series of trade-offs. One other trade-off is when they go to mechanical cooling, that is often where the noise problems come into play because the turbines on the roof to provide that cooling can be much louder than an evaporative cooling system. So it really is a series of trade-offs. There's no one size fits all, but understanding how these systems work and knowing questions to ask can really help make sure that these things are done properly. So like I said, power usage effectiveness, this is a figure that every data center uses. And they're trying to get down to a 1. If they are using more and more water efficient systems, that is going to be bringing their power usage effectiveness up. And so it is a push and pull that is going on. There is also what's called a water usage effectiveness, or WE figure, where they're looking at the energy use compared to the water. This is a figure that I see much less. And then in Europe, they actually have a carbon usage effectiveness too, but I don't see that used in the States here. So when we talk about different types of cooling systems, like I said, direct evaporative cooling, they would often be referred to as swamp coolers, use a ton of water. These things have to be constantly providing water for the cooling, and they're basically spraying water, and it's the evaporation of that water that is providing cooling. And so as that water evaporates, that is increasing the consumptive use of water. There is also indirect evaporative cooling, which could be much more efficient. That is going to increase energy usage. So if we have data centers coming in, we need to be asking, what is the cooling system? Okay, it's evaporative cooling. Well, is it direct evaporative cooling or indirect evaporative cooling? And if it's indirect evaporative cooling, what is the method that they're going to be using to reduce water use? This really helps us narrow things down and get to the right answers. Free air systems. This is something I'm really intrigued by, and it's just like it sounds. You're basically bringing outdoor air into the building. You're cleaning it, and between about 41 to 64 degrees is its optimal level. Between that threshold, you may not need to have any additional cooling at all. But that is a pretty narrow window. I often will hear developers say, we only need to use our AC units for about a month or two a year. We were 80+ degrees in March, so that doesn't quite jive. But this is great technology, and I have seen where they'll use free air systems and then evaporative cooling. But I've had a hard time finding what type of evaporative cooling system is being used. But free air, when you hear about that, that's what this is. So, and then, so that optimal line from 41 to 64, that can be full free air where they don't need any other additional cooling. Once it gets a bit warmer, from 64 to about 75, you may need to have both the free air and cooling system, and then above that, you need to have full air conditioning. And these are relative numbers. Different systems will have different numbers, but I've spoken to people in the field, and this is a fairly consistent number I came up with. Then we start talking about the closed loop systems, and this is becoming more and more common. And this is a great concept, as you are bringing the cooling directly to the ship. It quite literally will bring the cooling liquid directly onto the ship, pull the heat off of that, and then take the heat away and cool the system down. With a single phase closed loop system, water is the liquid that they're using. And so it's going through a cooling system, pulling the water out, transferring the heat to the building's cooling system, and then being cooled again. So it is a closed loop. They can use an awful lot of water to fill the system initially. It will have to be refreshed periodically. And so my biggest concern with these types of systems is that if they are tied to the municipal plumbing system, and that liquid is going out to the municipal wastewater treatment plants, it's typically treated with glycol, which is a refrigerant, or what you have in your radiator. They'll add biocides to keep any type of living material from forming in there, and they'll add other types of chemicals as descaling agents to keep it flowing properly. If those chemicals get into the wastewater treatment plant, that can kill the organisms that are providing the treatment. And so once again, it's really important early in the process to be asking these questions. How is this going to be interconnected? We toured a data center in Franklin Park, and so they are part of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, which does not allow them to discharge water to their system. So basically, they have tanker trucks coming in on a daily basis, taking the excess water and hauling that to a facility that treats that water. But this could have very adverse impacts to our wastewater treatment plants if we don't ask these questions up front. Now, with two-phase closed-loop systems, we're starting to get into science fiction here. It is kind of fascinating. So instead of water is being the liquid that's providing the cooling, they're using a specialized dielectric fluid. So it's non-conducting fluid that boils in the vapor at low temperature. So about 104 degrees to 140 degrees instead of 200 degrees, which is the boiling point for water. It'll start to turn to vapor. And so similar to the evaporative cooling where you're spraying water to create vapor to pull the heat, this is in a closed loop system. It's turning into vapor, pulling the heat away from the chips at very efficient levels, and then removing that. But it's a completely closed loop system. So no water is used at all. It has a high upfront cost. Manufacturers love to say that it has lower stress on equipment, but from what I've been reading over the past several months, they're changing the chips out every year anyway, so they're not so concerned about the wear and tear on the chips anymore. The big issue here is that this dielectric fluid has all kinds of chemicals in it. It's largely PFAS based and has a lot of other types of chemicals. It's like a mineral oil. And then these systems are also using fluorocarbons, hydrocarbons. And so potentially we could be throwing greenhouse gas into the atmosphere that can be many times more impactful than carbon dioxide and last thousands of years. So, what are the trade-offs that we're really doing? The reason I'm concerned about this is I've seen it misrepresented so dramatically. I've seen the chief technical officer of one of the main companies completely misrepresent PFAS, basically presenting it as naturally occurring elements, which is not true at all. So I don't get the sense that this is really on the EPA radar. And so once again, it really is up to local governments to be asking the questions and making sure that these things are being handled properly. And very few communities are going to have that type of expertise. I have not seen these systems proposed in any of the data centers that I've toured or read about, but certainly a lot of manufacturers out there trying to sell these systems. Now with liquid immersion, we're getting even deeper into the science fiction territory because you're actually completely submersing the GPU units in liquid. So you're immersing them in the liquid dielectric fluid. And so the efficiency of heat removal is incredible. And one of the benefits of this, and this is what the manufacturers all say, is because it's so efficient at removing heat, you can stack the GPU units closer together. So you can fit more units in the same area and be producing more revenue that way. There is a high upfront cost for these types of systems, but if you can offset that by having more GPU units and more productivity, maybe there is a trade-off. But once again, it's how do you handle these chemicals and make sure that we're not creating a toxic waste site for the future. We need to be asking these questions and getting answers as we move forward if these systems are being proposed. So there are a lot of tools in the toolbox. It's not a one size fits all. Different locations are going to have different needs, different water supplies. This is a site in Hoffman Estates, and I believe they use geothermal cooling there. So there's a lot of tools that we haven't even talked about, but they're just not things that are consistently proposed. But one thing I'm really intrigued with the amount of money these guys are throwing out. Microsoft, I think, spent $16 billion to reactivate one of the units at 3 Mile Island. Yeah. So there is a lot of money being distributed here. So, this may be a great potential opportunity to invest in water reuse. Now, even this has challenges. So many of our rivers now depend on the discharge of wastewater treatment plant effluent as the base flow for those streams. So now if we're taking that away and evaporating it for evaporative cooling systems, we have to be, aware of what the potential impacts are. And so once again, these are systems. It's not just a single operation. These are systems. So we need to look at it as such. And no easy answers. To be honest, my biggest concern is actually with energy. And so with our current system, we have centralized energy systems. So we usually have big power plants situated along a major river. And like I said, whether it's coal, natural gas, or nuclear, it's just different ways of boiling steam. So a certain percentage of the river water will be diverted to the power plant for steam production. They'll turn it into steam. A lot of this will be recaptured in the cooling towers. If you haven't nerded out on it, there's a great video of Practical Engineering. He does a great program on cooling towers. But they can recapture a lot of that water and discharge it back to the original source. Water for cooling is also diverted from the river, used for cooling purposes, and go to cooling ponds and then go back to the original source. So all the figures that you're going to see regarding water use and energy production are going to be based on these types of systems where the water is being returned to the original source. When we move to systems that are using our aquifers as their water source, that water is not going back to the original source. And so we'll be pulling water out for both energy production and for the direct water use of the data center. And we've already talked about the limitations. So a single housing development can have a profound impact on our water supplies. With energy production and direct water use from our Santa Gravel aquifers, I don't think there is a system out there that can support that if we're doing both energy and direct water use the data center. If we're drawing from the deep bedrock aquifer, there's more water down there, but we've already seen that it's non-renewable. So if we're, 80% of the water use is now being taken out for energy production from that deep bedrock aquifer. We're accelerating the death of that aquifer. And so once again, there's no easy answers. And the different types of systems being proposed for energy production are starting to address this, but once again, there are no easy answers for this. Now, it is important to point out that solar, photovoltaic, and wind energy systems don't need water. They're not boiling water to generate steam, but each of these has impacts as well. So if we're creating solar farms to meet our energy demands and a balanced energy budget, that's one thing. But if we're covering the landscape to meet the energy needs of a data center that is just voracious, is that really the best use of our landscape? We really do need to be asking these types of questions. So natural gas systems are the main thing that are being done. The big obstacle for these guys is that everybody's looking for the natural gas system. So there's like a 7-year lead time on getting a new natural gas system. The other problem that they're running into is that they aren't able to get grid access, so they have to be off-grid type of systems, at least until they can get on a connection to the grid. But there are different types of natural gas systems, just like the backward cooling. So you have single cycle, which uses a lot more water than combined cycles. Combined cycle is they're using both the heat from the steam and the water, and then the heat from burning the natural gas. So they're able to get more energy per unit of energy input. But then you have the energy production side that could be using a lot of water, and then you have a cooling system for that as well. And what type of system are they using? Single cycle or combined cycle, and what type of cooling system are they using? These are all questions that we have to be asking. There is a lack of transparency. So if we're not asking the right questions, the municipality or the local government may not be asking the right questions either. And so, instead of getting up and yelling about the wrong things, we should be asking the right questions. And I'm a great believer in politely asking the questions, politely and firmly asking the right questions. But then that way these things can actually be addressed. So you're going to be hearing more about small modular nuclear reactors. The system that made nuclear reactors safe has actually been deregulated. So a lot of the protections have actually been stripped to accelerate the industry. And so we are going to be seeing these things coming online. But it's being sold as if it is an existing technology. To date, there is not a single small modular reactor in operation in America today. I think there's only 2 on the planet right now. The closest one to being in production here in our area is actually at University of Illinois, Champaign, right next to the Illinois State Geological Survey building. is a micro reactor that's underway. And if you want to nerd out, that's the professor that I've been watching for a long time. He's got a 17-minute video on the microreactor at University of Illinois. So just Google microreactor University of Illinois, and this video will be one of the first things that pop up. I highly recommend watching it over dinner or something. There are different types of systems that are being proposed that may use less water. It's kind of interesting. I've been able to find more information on the small modular nuclear reactors than I can on data centers. But you're going to be hearing a lot more about this. But if they are producing steam, they're going to be using water. They'll be using molten salt as a cooling system. I don't know that means that there's going to be no water used for cooling. But these are the types of questions we need to be asking as these things start to develop. You will hear about other energy systems. The second data center that's going up in DeKalb is using a hydrogen system. So they're using natural gas as their feedstock, and they'll be separating the hydrogen from the natural gas without combustion, is the way I understand it. So that can, I guess, reduce the emissions, the methane emissions that could occur from that. Hydrogen is not an energy source, it's more of a storage device. And that's always been one of the limiting factors of hydrogen, is it usually takes more energy to produce the hydrogen than the energy you would derive from the hydrogen. Hydrogen is going to be one of a very important component moving forward. To my knowledge, it's primarily a storage device rather than an energy source. And I could give an hour-long presentation on the different forms of hydrogen too. And then natural gas turbines. So this is Elon Musk's solution. So they're looking for like jet engines, and once again, there's a supply chain issue. They can't find enough equipment to do all what they want to do. But they're using natural gas, but they're not using steam. So they're able to produce electricity directly from the turbines being powered from the natural gas. But they may be using evaporative cooling to cool the turbines. And so could still be using a lot of water if they're using evaporative cooling. So I think that's all I've got. Covered a lot of ground, but I'm happy to answer questions. So, and I will ask, I'm not an expert on AI, so please don't put me on the spot about let's keep things non-political. I'm not a political animal, but I'm happy to answer any questions that relate to the type of topics that we're talking about. So yes.
First of all, Scott, great. First of all, Scott, I just wanted to thank you. I've known you for so long, and I love that you're so nerdy, but yet you explain things in a way that everybody understands it. So thank you for that, right, everybody? It's really so great that we have you here in the county. I'm curious, do we have counterparts in all the municipalities? How are these things, the data centers, how are they zoned so that, is it a municipality that decides, or does the county have a say in it?
So far, every data center that I'm aware of in the state, at least, has been in municipalities, and they've been getting water from municipalities.
So are you providing training for all of our municipalities who may not have a Scott? The luxury of Scott.
I train you so that you can.
So the word is for all of us that we all need to be mindful and make sure that all of our city council members are aware of how we feel about this and what our concerns are, and to get them informed and send them to a website. Will they find this information?
I mean, this will be posted on the Defender's website. YouTube. To be honest, this is not something that I want to be doing. I've been thousands of other topics that I need to be an expert in besides this. But as I was delving into this topic, and this has wide-reaching implications far beyond our borders. I work with a lot of groups that focus on our regional water resources, and so this has a potential impact on our regional water
Absolutely.
resources that do have the potential to impact all of our direct water resources here. So that's why I really got engaged with this. And I wasn't hearing the information that I had gathered in the public realm. And I really do want to emphasize, I don't think it's productive to be yelling at city council meetings. I'm sharing this information so that we can be asking the right questions and, find the right answers. If we're yelling and saying it's going to be using 50 million gallons a day and it's not true, that makes it hard for any elected official to ask the right questions. And so I'm being very serious when I talk about, this is information that can help us get the right answers. And if they're not willing to do the right thing, then, they'll go to Indiana. But we need to be asking the right questions and being armed with knowledge and providing the right answers will be much more effective.
Thank you.
But different municipalities have handled it very differently. So Yorkville and Joliet have approved very large data centers. Joliet capped their water usage at 130,000 gallons a day, which in my mind still sounds like a lot. I think it equates to like 5,000 homes. But another industry coming in may be using that same amount of water. So I think that's kind of the rationale, but they did put some guardrails on the application. My biggest thing is that if we're not tracking it into the future, if we have a data center that's in operation right now, it's not operating at full capacity. These things are going to be driving robotic operations and manufacturing facilities throughout the country. These are not things that are actually being done now. So we're not seeing no data center is operating at full capacity. So if we're not tracking it into the future, water usage into the future, and having guardrails in place, then we're setting ourselves up for trouble in the future. I hope I answered the question there.
I think you answered and more, so thank you very much. Yes.
Did your research include China and what's going on over there?
I have not delved too much in China. To be honest, the main thing I've been looking at in China is all the energy systems that they have in place. But I've heard that they are developing data centers that don't use a lot of energy, but I don't know much about it. Physics is the same in China as the physics here. So I have a feeling that they're going to be encountering the same challenges that we are.
Going back to your first slide, when you were talking about the location of all the water in northern Illinois, has politics made any change in how distributing the water is handled now versus years ago? The reason I asked, many years ago, like 1970 to 75, I worked for the city of Crystal Lake. And there was this development that's gone on here, was just starting or just beginning. And the big thing everybody kept saying is, if you're going to build out here, remember, you do not have access to Lake Michigan. At that time, there was a line, and I remember it wasn't very far west that had access to the lake. But everything else had to be thought about. I'm just wondering if any of that's changed.
Well, so the allocation system is probably more refined than it was in the 1970s. To be honest, in the 80s was when a lot of municipalities started going off of groundwater because they were overdrawing and went to Lake Michigan. So it's really from the 70s onward that Lake Michigan has been expanding outward. So right now we are 100% reliant on groundwater for our drinking water, but the city of Crystal Lake is looking at the feasibility of Lake Michigan water. So the way it kind of works is Wilmette, Evanston, Chicago have an allocation that they're allowed, and so they'll pump and treat a certain amount of water, and then they can sell that water to a group. And I'm drawing a blank on what they're called now, but JAWA's, Joint Action Water Authority, I think is what it stands for. And so they'll be able to sell water further and further out. And it would be very expensive water. So City of Joliet literally is running out of water along with Plain for Yorkville and other communities. And so they are in the process of building a pipeline to get water from Chicago. So it's going to be very expensive water. So the price of water is basically going to triple. So it's a big price tag. Even if we can get a allocation, I don't know that financially it would make sense. If you do get an allocation, you have to meet very rigid water conservation standards. You get a little deep in the weeds here, but water loss has to be kept at less than 10%. So our pipes are under high pressure. So any joints that are leaking, any cracks in the pipes can be leaking an enormous amount of water. And so they would have to be investing in their infrastructure to keep that water loss at less than 10%. That's very expensive. And so there are a lot of challenges to getting Lake Michigan water. If we're going to be spending that much money to meet these conservation standards, maybe we should just implement the conservation standards and live within a balanced budget. There are no easy answers, but it is being looked at as far as feasibility getting water out here.
There's one in the way back there.
Yes, yeah, right here first.
Okay.
Do we have any in chat?
No.
Are you aware of anybody approaching McHenry County for a data center yet?
I guess I'm not particularly knowledgeable on that. I do believe that some municipalities are being approached. I don't know specifically where, but I anticipate that they're coming. And that's why I've invested so much time into this, just so that we could answer the questions properly. And they often will locate in the same place. So once you have one data center, you'll often find them start to group around it, and that's what we're seeing in DeKalb right now. And I will say, I've been part of a data center task force for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and so working with a lot of the mayors in the region, and the mayors that have worked with data center companies think it's the greatest thing in the world. The amount of revenue that they brought in have allowed them to lower taxes. And so there are a lot of competing interests and different perspectives. But once again, that's why it's important to understand what the issues are and ask the right questions.
Will we get notified before a data center comes to the area? So like, let's say the McHenry County Board gets it, are they going to see it, approve it, and then all of a sudden we find out, oh, the board approved it, and now we've got to go and fight to get them to, or we can find out before?
Well, that's been part of the problem with like the NDAs. First off, I don't expect to see any data centers approaching the county. They are approaching municipalities. I think having municipal water is a major component of that, and so they're looking at municipalities. And I can't speak to how your municipalities will approach these things. But the MDAs have been one of the issues. Charlie, I can't think of his name, the comedian from Wisconsin.
Barons.
Yeah, Charlie Barons. It's been interesting watching his evolution, and his knowledge on the topics definitely has gotten more sophisticated. But really what got him going was just that it really was dropped in the public's lap. I think it was Fort Townsend or something like that.
Yeah.
So different municipalities will have different approaches, and once again, the more tied in you are, and the better you're able to verbalize your concerns, the more likely you'll know in advance.
Yeah, 2 comments. You mentioned that returning the water to the source. And I've seen 2 sides of that. Out on Long Island, there's a nuclear plant that returns the water to Long Island Sound, and they grow the best oysters out there year round. And there was all upcry when people heard about that. So they need to understand they weren't radioactive water that the oysters were getting. On the other hand, I worked in Chicago and our building used Chicago water for our air conditioning system. So we weren't shedding the heat to the air, we were shedding it to the water. But we had an upper limit we were not allowed to exceed. The water couldn't exceed like, I'll say 80 degrees going back to the river. The problem was is more and more buildings, and one particular high rise overdrew their allocation. The water was coming to us only a few degrees below that. And there you've got an issue with your power plants and whatever. Is it good or is it bad? It can change.
Well, the reason it's not going back to the source here is because we have groundwater. And so if we're pulling it out of the deep bedrock aquifer, it's not going back into the deep bedrock aquifer. Downstate in Lake Springfield, Lake Decatur, that may be returned to the original source, but in our area that wouldn't be the case.
I'm guessing these aquifers are, the aquifer that municipalities in our area draw from this 1,000, 2,000 feet down.
So the shallow sand and gravel aquifers are typically between, like in Woodstock, we have 6 wells between 90 feet and 200 feet. The deep bedrock aquifer, the wells go down about 1,500 feet.
Okay, so those of us who are on private wells, which are a couple hundred feet, how would something like that affect us?
Well, so I don't expect that these things would be targeting the sand and gravel aquifers. So if Woodstock were to be approached, I do think that this would be problematic because it would be the sand and gravel aquifers just don't have that type of capacity. If they are drawing down the regional water table in the sand and gravel, that could affect local wells, and that's certainly something that would have to be looked at.
So you mentioned conservation, water conservation. I wondered what you could recommend to all of us to do.
To conserve water?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd say first off, come to our water forum in September 16th. We have this wonderful restaurant called Blue Sail House Catering. And this year we're going to have 2 tables, 2 lines to speed people through, and we're going to have much more food than we had last year. But there are a lot of ways to be much more efficient. So water sense appliances, when you are updating your, whether it's your toilet, your shower heads, or appliances, shop for the water sense. They've already vetted the product for water efficiency and the actual functionality of the products. Don't take half-hour showers. Instead of having turf grass and watering your lawn, let the lawn go dormant. If you can, convert a percentage of your lawn to native. At the county building, we have 2 native demonstration gardens to show how well this can work. We'll be doing a talking tour of the county building in July. I haven't figured out the precise date yet, but keep your ears open for that. There are a lot of ways that we can be much more efficient with our water. I did see somebody from Kane County, I think. Was your sister here? Yes. So in Kane County, they have a rebate program for toilets. Different places will have different incentives. I'm not aware of any cities that are doing it in McHenry County yet, but if there are any motivated people to help facilitate a program, I'm open to working with you.
All right, maybe we'll do some more over here.
Are you aware of any work being done for making use of the waste heat? I'm thinking for space heating or domestic hot water or.
That's a great question.
Processing, something like that.
I hear a lot of talk about this can be done. And I'll use an example. When I was in grad school, I did a paper on this. So the city of Holland, Michigan, they were in violation of their EPA permit. So the power plant was discharging hot water into the river. And that can adversely impact the fish and the macroinvertebrates and everything. And fortunately, you had a wise public works person who said, hey, we need to redo our streets. Why don't we take the hot water from the power plant and run it through our streets and sidewalks? So now it melts the snow in the wintertime. And they've actually tracked the profit margins, profitability of the local businesses, because the downtown area is beautiful, boutique shops, and their people's the businesses' profits have gone up, and they've attributed that to people being much more willing to shop in the wintertime because they don't have to tromp through slush and snow to get there. And so, these types of synergies, that this is actually something we studied at grad school, co-locating. But if you're putting your data center out in the middle of a farm field, it's harder to find those types of synergies. But I would love to see more of that type of thing. And it's not just data centers, any industry. I did another paper on a company called Interface Carpets. So they make carpet tiles, and they've got their system where they can actually not only take their product back and recycle it over and over again, they can take other carpet manufacturers' carpets and recycle it. So now that is the feedstock for the next generation of products. So where all their competitors are having to be subject to the volatility of the marketplace for the raw materials, they are bringing the recycled product in as the feedstock at no cost or low cost. And so their profit margins have gone up by looking for those types of opportunities. So I would love to see this type of thing much more commonplace. And I do think that waste heat can be a great asset. Downtown DeKalb, don't have to use any salt for their downtowns anymore, because the waste heat is now being used to cool or melt the snow. So I would love to see more of that type of thing. Right now, I hear it being theoretical more than anything, but great point.
We're gonna have to wind up, but Scott will be here afterwards, and please feel free to come up and talk about all this with him. And please give him a great thank you. We're now well educated to go into the community and do what needs to be done, right? Yes, that's good. But meantime, we know there are a few of you who want to share some announcements with the community. So we'll come around with the mic. Please keep it low.
You got 1 minute.
Yeah, and we'll get to everybody. So
Oh, you can, Nancy. Okay.
and then we'll go over there.
Hello, I'm Nancy Young, Earthquake and Wildflower Preservation and Propagation Committee. We help people to plant native plants in their yards. It's a great way to conserve water. We have 2 events coming up for you. We have our natural wild walks on the wild side every month. We give you a guided tour of a natural yard. This month, June 27th, we'll have two times at 10 and 12. A guided tour of a 1.5 acre yard. You can find more about that on the WPPC.org. We also started a new program last year. We have an annual bus trip. Last year we went.
You have 18 seconds.
Oh,
Let's talk about the new one.
This year we're going to Medewan. There are still some seats open. It's July 11th. So if you want to take a wonderful trip to Medewan, we have a bougie bus to take you down there, and lunch, catered lunch.
Hey, all right, coming over this way.
I want to let everybody know there'll be a celebration of the life of Bill Huntington, June 28th at Pioneer Farm. The gathering at 1:30 and the program will start at 2, if you call it program. The celebration starts at 2. Is it anything? Oh, I've got some little flyers, so I'll read them on the table in the back. If you set the address and I gotta run, I got no meeting to get to.
Joe is very active in our 3 great city vendors, so those of you who are doing this. And celebrate.
Thank you, Leslie. William Berg, the president of the McHenry County Conservation District. We're in the process of doing a 50-year plan, and a survey has gone out. People have been selected at random, and I just encourage you that if you've gotten that survey, to please fill it out, send it back. We're gonna use that survey, compile it.
Just to remind people that we have handouts on the table from all different organizations, so please take them. Everything from green guides to information about the household hazardous waste. This Saturday. Please take those.
She stole my thunder, but I was gonna mention the household hazardous waste recycling event and the green guide now. So I want to thank everybody that distributed the green guide. We distributed a record number, over 5,000 copies have been distributed in copy. Anniversary and really honored.
Ann, are you going? Yeah. Okay, I'll go ahead, and the environmental defenders, a lot of you have donated to the Environmental Defenders Use It Again sale, which starts tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the Algonquin Township Road District Garage, Building 6B at 3702 US Highway 14. So come and shop. We're open this weekend, Thursday through Saturday, and next weekend, Thursday through Saturday.
Hi, everybody. Erin Kennedy with the Environmental Defenders, going off of the Algonquin Township Road District. I just wanted to thank you all for the community support that we've received for restarting our styrofoam program. We've been really excited about the response, but we need your help in spreading the word. As of right now, the Algonquin Township Road District is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 2. The hope is to gain momentum and hopefully open up another location for McHenry County residents to utilize. But if you could help spread the word, let people know that Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 2, that they are welcome to come on by the Algonquin Township Road District and drop off the styrofoam that they used to drop off before the program was suspended for a little bit. So thank you guys again for your support and help us spread the word. We're also looking for volunteers. We need people to help sort at our shed. So if you're looking for a great community volunteer project, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Don't forget to let go. Don't forget to.
Name tags, you take your name tags back. There's a little box back there for them.
And the donation jar.
Yes, please keep coming by Duke's to eat. We have our donation jar right there. And also if, sorry, you need it in front of you. If you are shopping for food, there's a great food co-op in town. So make sure you take a visit there. If you've never been, check it out and see about supporting that too. Lots of things to be involved in here in McHenry County. We're really fortunate to have smart people to come and help educate us about important topics. We'll have another one next time, as you know, Fast Fashion on July 1st. Meantime, get outside, enjoy this incredible weather. I hope your gardens are getting going and no little critters are eating yours like they're not mine. But it's always kind of fun, is it not? More stories to tell. So we have an incredibly beautiful world that we share with so many. Please keep taking care of it, our life support system and each other. We will see you again in July. Take care. Thank you.